The Pittsburgh Steelers reportedly have interest from an offensive coach that wants to join their staff. And, well, maybe that interest isn't mutual. What's going on, everybody? I'm Noah Strackmine. Thank you for jumping on to Steelers to Go, your daily to-go cup of Pittsburgh Steelers news and analysis. Find us on youtube.com/All Steelers Talk and subscribe anywhere you get your podcasts. Today, we're talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers coaching staff and a report that's out there that claims that they have interest from somebody who wants to help their offense. According to The Athletic's Mark Kaboly, who made an appearance on 93.7 The Fan as they talked about Matt Canada, the Pittsburgh Steelers offense and the coaching staff in general, says that Byron Leftwich, former Pittsburgh Steelers quarterback and Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive coordinator, has reached out to the team and has expressed interest in joining them as an offensive consultant. However, they are, quote unquote, ignoring him, or at least attempting to ignore him, with no signs that they have any interest in bringing him on board during the season. And honestly, maybe that's the right move. Byron Leftwich, former Super Bowl champion with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers as an offensive coordinator in a time in a season where everything was red hot, but he had Tom Brady working with him, and everybody at the beginning tried to ignore that. By the end, couldn't ignore that. Byron Leftwich's time obviously started with a ring, but things fell off as it moved forward. By his final season in 2022, his team averaged just 18.4 points per game, which ranked 25th in the NFL. And meanwhile, they ranked 15th in yards per game, which by the time he started, or when he did start, they ranked third in yards per game. At this point, it is a giant question mark whether or not Byron Leftwich is meant to be an offensive coordinator in the NFL, is capable of being a successful offensive coordinator in the NFL, and how much of it was Tom Brady and how much of it for the struggles was the fact that everybody left when Tom Brady left, that the team really didn't have a backup plan by the end of it, and that Tom Brady, by the time it was all over, wasn't the same quarterback that he was when he arrived. Giant question marks, right? But people have shouted, and including myself, have said that the Pittsburgh Steelers should bring Byron Leftwich on as an offensive consultant, and that is the right move. And during the offseason, he was the hottest name revolving around the Pittsburgh Steelers, and whether or not they could add him to their team and their coaching staff to head into the season, because it didn't sound like Matt Canada was going to go anywhere. And once it was established that Matt Canada was staying, it almost seemed like you have to add Byron Leftwich. You have to add a security blanket. You have to have a backup plan so that when things start going wrong during the season, you have somebody to fall back on. And that would be somewhat of the same mindset right now. But I don't know if I subscribe to the same notion and the same belief that I did in May and April and even maybe June. The way we looked at it back then was, at some point, Matt Canada is probably going to go. The Steelers' offense isn't going to get better. They're going to continue to struggle. Kenny Pickett's going to take a hit. You don't want him to fall off completely. You have to have a backup plan because this team is built all around to win. So you don't want to walk into the middle of the season without an offensive coordinator or have to make Mike Sullivan your offensive play caller. That was the thought. Okay, Byron Leftwich can learn. He could become another Brian Flores, and the Pittsburgh Steelers have that safety blanket. I don't sit there with the same thought right now, and it's pretty simple why. For me, it goes like this. The Pittsburgh Steelers are not going to get rid of Matt Canada. I think that their time to do so was right now, and they aren't going to during the bye week because they won against the Baltimore Ravens. Matt Canada came into the locker room afterwards. He was giving everybody hugs and big smiles on everybody's faces. Kenny Pickett had a game-winning drive, and that's all you needed. The Steelers just needed one excuse not to get rid of him. They got that one excuse. It came super late. Is it justified? Probably not, but it was enough for them to tell all of us and tell all of the fans and tell all of the media that, they're headed in the right direction, that this is the momentum that they need heading into the bye week to turn things around and get the offense sparked and so on and so forth. They have enough to speak and to give us a little something, as Mike Tomlin likes to say. So Matt Canada isn't going anywhere. My concern with bringing on Byron Leftwich is you don't want another Matt Canada. You don't want another middle of the pack offensive coordinator. You don't want somebody who could struggle. You don't want somebody who's a question mark. You don't want somebody who might not make it. Plain and simple. The Pittsburgh Steelers' next offensive coordinator, if it is not Matt Canada, if Matt Canada is not re-signed at the end of the season, I think there's a belief out there that his contract is up after 2023. If that's the case and the Pittsburgh Steelers are not bringing him back in 2024, you need to go big or go home. You need to get somebody who is a sure bet, who you know is going to work out. You need to get a name that is proven in the NFL. You cannot just sit around and say, okay, well, we'll try this guy because he's also got ties to the organization. And we love ties to the organization. If you have some sort of connection to the Pittsburgh Steelers, we love to have you on our coaching staff. They can't do that. They should just go look at San Francisco and say, hey, who do you have left? What skill coaches do you have left to hire? Because we'll hire one of them. Who cares? You go to, I don't know, wherever, Green Bay, or I can't even think of offenses right now that are very successful, but you could go to a number of these teams, find successful skill position coaches, find offensive coordinators who are still sitting there on the market who probably deserve a job, and go get a sure bet. You don't want to risk that with Byron Leftwich. And Pittsburgh Steelers fans shouldn't be looking for the Pittsburgh Steelers to add Byron Leftwich just because you don't want to take that risk. You don't want him to be your next offensive coordinator. You don't want the Pittsburgh Steelers to go from Matt Canada to Byron Leftwich and risk having the same outlook and the same results for the next 3 years after you just dealt with mediocre and poor results for 3 years. That's not what you're looking for. You're looking for a superstar. You're looking for the Pittsburgh Steelers to change their ways. You're looking for a window to be opened so that when this is all said and done, the Pittsburgh Steelers could go into their free agency market and they could say, okay, we have to change our ways. We cannot, we know that we have a defense. We know that we have a quarterback. We know that we have the skill positions. We just need an offensive coordinator. We need a play caller. We need a very successful one. And they could go out and they could find one that wasn't brought up through the system or wasn't somebody who has just easy ties that you could hire on and say, all right, that's it. Somebody that maybe doesn't even know who Mike Tomlin is. And that, I know everybody knows who Mike Tomlin is, but you get the gist. That's who the Pittsburgh Steelers should hire next. If you bring Byron Leftwich in right now, you're just putting him in line to be the next guy. You're just saying, hey, look, when this is all said and done, you're the easy promotion. We'll move on from there, and then we'll just do this again. That's too big of a risk. The Pittsburgh Steelers can't take that right now. Yeah, you probably have to struggle it out with Matt Canada this season. And if Matt Canada does get fired at any point for any reason, which is very hard to imagine, Mike Sullivan isn't the best option, but you just kind of have to take what you got at that point. And you kind of just have to look at it and say, this is what we could do. This is all we could do right now. It is better than having somebody already in place who isn't going to make it either. That's all you're looking for. And the Pittsburgh Steelers, they're too much of a risk right now to even have Byron Leftwich on the roster or on the coaching staff, have everything go wrong, make Byron Leftwich their offensive coordinator during the season, and him somewhat struggle. Because what we've seen is that they will use that and say, oh, well, time is a factor. We have to give him more time. And that will be the excuse for him to return in 2024. And then you join a cycle or you continue a cycle. You just don't want that. Too big of a risk. Let it rock. Take the negatives that come this season. Take the pain and the hardships and the possibility that Mike Sullivan is your next offensive coordinator in 2023 if worst case scenario happens. But it's better than the next 3 years of the same thing that everybody's been dealing with for the last 3.